You're listening to the Control System Integrators Association's Talking Industrial Automation podcast, where you get to know the people that make modern manufacturing and processing possible. Now, here is your host, Tony Verhoeven.
Thanks for downloading the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. This is a show to help you get to know the people that make modern manufacturing and processing possible. I'll be talking industrial automation with CSIA system integrators and industry partners to get a better understanding of how they help their clients solve manufacturing and process challenges, and how they became successful in their careers. Along the way, we will touch on system integration best practices, technology, trends, and challenges. Whether you are a manufacturer, end user, supplier, or system integrator, I hope you will enjoy the insights CSIA members will bring to this podcast. Hi, it's Tony Verhoeven, and we're talking industrial automation with Arun Sinha of Opto 22. Hi, Arun.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking about an hour, maybe 45 minutes or so to chat with us today. What we like to do is I love to interview executives and owners and the main person from a company that, at least as far as the CSIA is concerned, to just to kind of get to know them a little bit and help end users and system integrators and anybody else is interested in listening, just to get to know you a little better. A lot of times we put out this marketing collateral and we have this logo and we have this corporate image, but really people are doing business with people, and they do business with people they like, know, and trust. So that, to me, I like let's sit down and have a conversation. I get to know our members a little better. I get to learn some things about industrial automation, especially since I don't come from this industry, and so for me, it's a little of a learning experience as well.
I think that's terrific, and I do enjoy your webcasts.
Oh, thanks so much. So, Arun, Opto 22 has been a member for some time of CSIA. Tell us a little bit about why you're here and maybe why CSIA is important.
Yeah, we've been a member with CSI for quite some time, and we think it's a really good organization. We like to be a part of it from a vendor's perspective, but we also draw and learn a lot from the people in the organization, the systems integrators. And I think that the idea of CSIA providing services specifically for SIs in terms of certification and best practices, we think that's a great idea. As well as I know there's a lot of other services geared towards small businesses, on topics of insurance or HR. And we just think it's a terrific organization that's geared specifically toward, a set of people meeting their needs. So yeah, we're very happy to be a part of it.
Great. And so what do you specifically, I guess, get out of this from a industry partner standpoint? Is there anything kind of particular like you enjoy being here with? Is there something about the integrators that are part of the organization that you enjoy or that is important from kind of a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. Of course, we like the exposure in terms of making sure that the members of CSIA are aware of, the technologies we're developing and the products we're developing, but also going back the other way, we learn a lot by interacting with the members of the organization about, what's going on in projects that they do and with customers that they serve. So it's kind of an interchange, so that's really the main point is we learn and they get to learn about us. And it's a good networking opportunity.
Great. So tell me a little bit about what Opto 22 is and has been doing, and has it been doing the same thing for a while, or have you guys evolved?
Definitely evolved. So Opto 22 has got an interesting history. We're a 44-year-old company, founded in 1974. The founder of the company is kind of a known person in the electronics world. He was one of the co-inventors of the solid-state relay, actually. His name is Robert Engman. And he started the company to produce and sell solid-state relays. And we've evolved over the years when relays went to board-mounted, and then people had these things called PCs that were new, and they wanted to monitor and control the relays via computers. And then through the 90s, we evolved into a full programmable automation controller platform. So yeah, we've been around a long time. We have customers and partners all over the world, and always have a kind of a culture of innovation. Sometimes we joke and say that we're a company of engineers, run by engineers, which is kind of a scary thought, but it really drives innovation. One of the things I like to point out is, though we're a well-established company, been around a long time, we still kind of look and feel and act in certain ways like a startup. We're very flat. We don't have a lot of layers and matrices. We're just a bunch of people who are highly energized and highly passionate, and we interact with each other, and innovation is key here. A couple of example is, like, we're one of the first companies when OPC was started. I think the first OPC meeting was held in the conference room upstairs at our facility. We're one of the first companies to have Ethernet on an industrial controller when people thought that was crazy, probably in 97 or something like that. And then we were kind of pushing early on into interaction or integration with IT systems using TCP/IP protocols like SNMP for remote monitoring and things like that. So great company, a group of focused individuals. I also like to mention, it's kind of surprising, is we manufacture everything in-house. So we're very close to, say, the Mexican border, and a lot of people outsource and use the shops over there to build their electronics. We do everything in-house. In the building that I'm sitting in, which is the headquarters, we have 150,000 square feet, and about half of that is dedicated to manufacturing. So a great place to work, innovative company, and we've got a great customer base that we love to serve. Great.
Where are you guys located, and how many people do you have there?
Yeah, so we're in Temecula, California. Not a lot of people know that name, but we're about an hour north of San Diego, California, in a suburb. There's only a couple of tech companies here, but it's a beautiful community. The company moved here from Huntington Beach, which is near LA. They moved here in like 91 and built this building. We have about 200 employees. About half work in the manufacturing floor, and the other half are everything else. Engineering, sales, marketing, accounting.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about kind of what you guys specialize in. Tell me about a groov. I see groov on your shirt there.
Yes, my shirt is a Groov Epic. That's a new product that we've just announced, and we're rolling it out in May. And I'll speak to your question about kind of where we're focusing these days. And Groov and Epic tie into that. We see, a big movement toward the IoT, or the IIoT, the Industrial Internet of Things, which is all about data, and not so much quantities of data, but what intelligent things you can do with data. So we've tried to gear our new product toward being able to take advantage of some IT technologies, some data analysis technologies, and allow customers to have a platform to develop IoT applications. So, the Groov started out as a kind of a gateway for mobility. So people could take their mobile phones or their iPads or their Androids and monitor and control their PLC or PAC systems. And it has evolved into a gateway that does data processing and also moves data into cloud platforms or edge platforms with IT-supported protocols. So that's Groov. And where we've come now is, Groov has been very successful for the past 4 years since it's been out. But we kind of had a two-box solution where there was Groov, this great box that gave mobility and gave connectivity to IT systems. And then we had our PAC system, which did the industrial control and machine control. They've now merged into one platform, and that's what Epic is. And we felt we needed to give it a new name because it's not a PLC, it's not a PC, it's not a gateway, it's a lot of different things. So that's why we came up with the name Epic, Edge Programmable Industrial Controller. So that's kind of where we're at today, really looking to help customers who are looking to take advantage of what might be called IoT technologies, but really that's a vague term. I think what that means is, connecting to sensors and signals, connecting to existing legacy PLC systems, bringing that data into a central place, doing some edge processing, whether that's traditional automation control or whether it's doing data mashups, like bringing data from outside sources and combining it together with processor machine data, and then moving that data out in a way that cloud platforms or analytics platforms can understand and use. So that's, in a nutshell, where we're at today, really trying to address the industrial IoT with a tool set in our Epic platform.
Are you working with other, you must probably work with other maybe cloud computing, other cybersecurity companies, other companies that might be CSIA members do you guys have like some sort of partners, not SI partners, but other technology partners that you're working with?
That's a great question, Tony. And automation has always been something where partnerships are key. And with industrial IoT, it's even more important because no one company is going to have an end-to-end solution. Collaboration is key. Partnerships are key to put all the pieces in place. So to answer your question, yes, we as a vendor do have a partner network, and many of them are CSIA members. So they're important because they understand the OT domain. They know automation, they know instrumentation, they know controls, and some of them also have some capability and skill sets more on the IT side, right? So we have our own, approved system integrators. We call them Opto partners. Again, some of them are CSIA members. Very recently, it's kind of interesting. We came up with a certification program for IoT. We call it the, IoT certified Opto partners, and they go through kind of a qualification process and some testing to become IoT certified. So that's our program. But also important is for Opto to be in other companies' partner programs. So we have very close ties with inductive automation. And then if you kind of take that, I'll call it northbound, we've become partners to some of the big IT companies. So we're an IBM IoT certified for Watson partner. We're a Dell IoT partner. We're a AT&T IoT partner, because those are the companies that are, have the expertise in developing analytics, machine learning. They've developed cloud platforms that ingest data and do magical things with that data, but they look to companies on the OT side like us who can get that data from a sensor, from a pump, from a motor, from a machine. So yeah, partnerships are important. Our system integrator network, as well as us being partners with some of the IT companies. I think that is, collaboration is really key for IoT projects.
So, and so that you bring up a good point about kind of getting data from a sensor and kind of pushing it out into the cloud, making it available for analysis. Talk a little bit about that. That's been, people have been able to do that for a long time, but it seems like the last few years, this has become a huge issue, right? With the Internet of Things and industrial Internet of Things, about the ability to push this data out for analysis and really looking at how a plant operates and virtual or figurative tweaking of knobs to make this thing, run even better. So talk about maybe the importance of the ability to do that, and maybe where you guys fit in to the ability to share that information.
You hit the nail on the head, Tony. When people in the outside world, outside of industrial automation and controls, to them, this all seems new, to be able to monitor and control processes and machines and then take that data and take action on it. In our world, what's new? That's what we've been doing since PLCs were invented in the 60s. So here's the key difference. You've probably heard an overused term, data silos. In the OT world, automation and control has been going on for a long time, But the difference now, where it ties into the IoT, is often we find that data is moving around between sensors and PLCs, perhaps SCADA systems, and maybe a little bit higher into, say, MES or ERP systems or something like that. The difference now, or what's new, is the mashup or inclusion of data from sources outside of that world or outside of that sphere. So, for example, if you have a plant control system, you're monitoring things, you're controlling them automatically based on your control scheme. What the IoT brings, or what's different, is let's say you want to bring data in from a web application. Let's say you want to bring in data from the internet. For example, I'll give you a real world example. We have a client that manages wind farms. So they're using Opto 22 to monitor and control their wind turbines. But the IoT aspect is that, as you know, the electrical grid has to stay balanced. Too much production is not good. So the way that's controlled by the utility or the CAISO in California is they set a spot price for electricity. So what they pay the generator for electricity. So there are times when this wind farm, it's not profitable to generate. There are times when there's too much electricity on the grid, so they actually set the spot prices negative, so it costs them to generate. So what I'm getting at is what they do is they have their, traditional automation control system, but they're also using APIs to go out to a CAISO website to look at the spot price, bring that in and tie it in to their control scheme, right? So that's just one simple example of bringing data from an outside source. They bring in weather data. None of this is, on the control system or on the plant floor. It's from other sources. Kind of the example that's talked about a lot is preventative maintenance or predictive maintenance as opposed to preventative. So in that case, think of a motor or a pump, and you're looking at temperatures and vibrations. But what if you could also grab data from a database that has similar data for same horsepower, same nameplate equipment, and has curves or something for their failure? It has nothing to do with what you're monitoring or measuring, but it's bringing outside data sources. So I know that's a long answer. I apologize, but that's kind of the difference now, is this mashup of different data sources for an outcome. Sometimes an operational outcome, sometimes, like in the wind farm example, a business or financial outcome.
Oh, great. Excellent. Yeah, no, that's good. And don't apologize for the long answers. I like long-winded answers. I think our listeners and viewers do as well. So you touched on a little bit of maybe a case study or a little bit of a project there. Maybe tell us a little bit more about some success stories and kind of, your particular role in this, and obviously there's a lot of probably other partners involved, a lot of sources of data involved, but tell us about a story where you were involved with a client, maybe even with a system integrator, and kind of how you put together a good package or a data package or a system for a client.
That was the second part of your question that I didn't really answer, was our role. So first of all, this is early days. So we have a handful of interesting case studies that would fall into the IoT for a better operational or business outcome. We've got some of those. I touched on the wind farm customer, but I wanted to speak to the part you asked earlier, is our role. The way we see our role is to be able to make connections, which one does well as an automation company, raw electrical signals, or to industrial protocols like Modbus TCP or TCP/IP to third party equipment. Ethernet IP, BACnet, what have you. But the difference now, what we're trying to do differently in terms of our role, is to be able to make that data available to IT systems in a transport mechanism and data format that they can understand. That's what we see as our role. That's what's kind of different, and where we see ourselves being able to serve customers. And to give you a specific example, if you're looking at IBM Bluemix, or you're looking at SAP HANA or something like that. They don't understand Modbus TCP. They don't understand Ethernet IP. They need the data in one of the protocols that they understand. So we feel our role is to put into our control system or enable our control system to speak IT protocols, like MQTT is very popular. Data formats like JSON, these are outside of our world. When you talk to web developers, they understand these things. We're also embracing what's called APIs, application programming interfaces. When you're dealing with a web application or two web applications, the way they're communicating, the way applications all over the web communicate with each other is through APIs. You're able to code in any language to hit an endpoint and move data from one place to the next. You don't see that in control systems. That's what we're doing. So to answer your question about what our role is, it's to provide enabling technologies for the IoT in the way of communication protocols and data formats.
Great, yeah. And you mentioned like things like JSON, which I'm peripherally aware of, but for other reasons, sometimes in the web world and things like that.
And it's all new to me too.
Yeah. But things like that, does that expose you, or does that help bring in like different kinds of talent? Because I talked to someone previously, a previous interview, and they talked about how what they want their engineers coming in to have, I guess, certain skills that you may not certainly necessarily find maybe in traditional controls engineering or industrial automation, right? They're looking for things like, okay, this person should have a good, maybe a .NET platform understanding, and they want to have them have, some JavaScripting, even certain like that. So, things that maybe more towards traditional web development sorts of things here. So, are you pulling, can maybe talking about talent or pulling in engineers or consultants on a project? Are you finding that you're pulling in different types of talent?
That's a great question, and it's right on point, because if you look at a person like myself, I'm your typical, instrumentation and automation person. I came up on that. Initially I was a mechanical engineer, and I programmed way back when in Fortran. So I had programming experience. But if you look at the typical man or woman who comes from the OT side, they know how to program in ladder logic. They may know some scripting, and they know the IEC languages like function block diagram or what have you. But these data formats and communication protocols that I'm talking about are really on the IT side. So that is an issue. Now, as far as us bringing in talent to Opto to have those skill sets to be able to develop these tools and be able to make these tools available to our customers, yes, we're doing that. It's more interesting to look at it from our customers and our potential customers' point of view, and it's kind of a thing where, like I said, the typical automation guy or gal may not be familiar with those technologies. That's where another commonly used or overused buzzword is this OT and IT divide. It speaks to that, where those skill sets are on the IT side, and that collaboration between the two is necessary. And both sides have to start to learn each other's technology. The users of automation have to start to learn these technologies, and the folks on the IT side have to start to learn about our programming languages and our protocols. And so that is a thing that is going to have to happen, and it's starting to happen, I believe. One other point on that is young talent coming out of school, they're okay. When many of your viewers and your listeners might have gone through the following scenario where they hire a bright person out of school who is got a great programming background in C++ or Python or JavaScript or Perl or something like that. And then they are put in front of a PLC and they see ladder logic and they go, what the heck? So my point there is, as new people come into the industry, it's going to help that evolution, I believe, because most of them already have that skill set. Even if they've come up on EE or industrial engineering, they're exposed to these tools coming in to the industry. But
Right.
it's a great point, and we'll see how that evolves. But I'm optimistic that each side is going to learn each other's skill set.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. Yeah, we hear all the time, and we've even mentioned on the podcast talking about this IT and OT convergence. It seems like you can't throw a rock without hitting a blog article, figuratively, about there being an article about this. But it's a real thing, right?
It's a legitimate topic. Yeah. And it also speaks. Sorry, it brings me back to when we're talking about system integrators and the IoT certification thing that we have. I think that it's the successful SIs are going to be the ones who embrace those new technologies and learn a little bit more about the IT side. So I think we'll see that in the system integrator community as well. And we're already seeing it with some of our partners and some of the partners in your organization as well.
So is there any kind of misunderstanding, talking about this convergence, right? Are there any, I guess, major misconceptions or resistance either at the client level or manufacturer level or at an SI level? Is there something that they should know that you can warn them about or point towards of like, hey, you should really be aware of this?
There's always things that come up that could be classified as concerns. Security is always a big one with end users and often with SIs because they have to serve the end users. I'm not an expert on security and can't speak too deeply on that, but that's one that comes up, and it's incumbent upon the manufacturers of industrial automation systems and gateways and things that are going to be used in IoT applications to use the latest technologies in terms of encryption, authentication, security certificates. So there's that. The data privacy thing comes up. The ownership of data comes up. Those are concerns, but I think there's a lot of bright minds out there thinking about these things and working on these things. One concern that I have, and I think other people might share as well, is I don't know that the big IT companies understand our world very well yet, but they're making great progress. If I look, I've had a lot of interaction with the likes of, IBM and AWS and Microsoft with their Azure, going back about 18 to 24 months. And I deal with individuals at these companies, and I look at how far they've come since then, and it's going in the right direction. But if you look at a lot of, pick your favorite IT company, pick one in your head and go to their website, and you'll be very surprised to see they have pictures of automotive manufacturing lines and, welders. It looks like they're the kings of manufacturing. You know what I mean? And I think the cart's before the horse a little bit, but that is part of the momentum that's driving the IoTs. These companies have said, hey, we know how to do data science. We know how to do analytics. We've been doing it in the IT world for a long time. Now we're going to turn our sights on manufacturing and use that expertise. So I think, on the topic of concerns, I think they have a ways to go to understand the OT side a little better, but I think it'll get there. So that's another concern, how well do these companies understand our world on the OT side?
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right, especially with, there are several, probably in the consumer world known for consumer level PCs or components within PCs. Or other computing devices, and and they're starting to discover, they've become members of ours. They want to be here. They're trying to definitely get a better understanding. So I think you're right.
Yeah, and kind of related to that in terms of concern is, I don't know if you've noticed, but past 2 years, a lot of talk about the cloud, but there seems to be a recent pivot to the edge. And my personal theory on that is, I think when a lot of these IT companies or companies who do analytics or machine learning or anomaly detection, when they first set their foot for the first time in a manufacturing environment or in a machine builder's world, they realize that edge is very important, and not everything can be done in the cloud. A lot of that pre-processing has to be done at the edge. So that was a concern, but I think it's being addressed now, where a lot of these companies are now scrambling to release or develop what they call edge instances or edge agents to their analytics platform. So that was a concern for a while, but I think that's being addressed.
If there's someone who doesn't understand what edge is, maybe just kind of give us a quick primer on what edge means.
Yeah, it's a word that somebody made up for what already exists. The edge is where a PLC sits or a PAC sits, right? It's the edge of the network. So away from the edge would be a cloud. You have a remote server somewhere. You have a service running on a server in some location where you don't know where it is. But as you get underneath the firewall in a manufacturing environment, in a plant, you get close to the process, that would be the edge. I mean, the last mile would be the sensor on board a machine. And, right near that is what's called the edge of the network.
Got it. Appreciate that. Go back to, kind of maybe a skill set for engineers and what they would have. It's no secret that finding good talent is a challenge. For an engineer fresh out of school, or maybe one who's an aspiring engineer still in school, what kind of experience should they have? Maybe they haven't even discovered that there's a whole world of manufacturing automation, process engineering. What's cool about it? And maybe what sort of things what sort of skills should they start to build so that they could be an engineer at a system integrator or an engineer at a industry supplier like yourself?
Yeah, it's a very important point, and I think it's something that has always been the case in the instrumentation, controls, and automation industry, and that is that there aren't really many colleges or universities that have degrees in industrial automation. There's industrial engineering where they touch on it, but most people who are in our industry today have learned it on the job. I've looked, I think, Texas A&M might have, a degree in automation. If you look at foreign countries, other countries like Europe, Germany, India, they have degrees in industrial automation. That's the title of the degree. We don't have that a lot here. So it's mostly learned on the job. That's, how it happened for me. That's probably how it happened to many of the people who are listening to your webcast. So I think, how do we address that? Oh, there's been a lot written and talked about how to address it. I don't know that I have the magic bullet, but I think that there is some movement toward getting some of manufacturing and industrial automation curricula in some shape or form back into engineering programs, whether it be electrical, whether it be mechanical. There seems to be more of a focus now on, with all the talk about bringing manufacturing, back to the U.S. and things like that. So I think that's, there's progress being made there. As far as, skill sets, what can people do? One of the problems has also been for many years, I think young people didn't think manufacturing was glamorous, right? They thought it was dirty and greasy and loud. And, not that all millennials want to be professional snowboarders or something like that, but I think manufacturing was thought as dirty. But I think there's a swing back now. And with all this talk about IoT, with the big IT companies pushing into manufacturing, I think it's becoming glamorous again. And I think the future looks bright for getting talent into our industry. But I don't have a magic bullet for, how do we get young people in school, trained on what we do other than internships and things like that. So maybe it's incumbent upon manufacturers and companies like oil and gas companies or food plants or pharmaceutical plants to bring in interns and train them. That's one idea, but I think it's getting better.
Yep, I agree. Mm-hmm. What are some of the cool, exciting things that are going on in industrial automation and control system engineering right now that you're observing, or do you have any observations about what's happening, or maybe some trends that you see that maybe may not be apparent?
I think it's exciting times right now. If you look at our industry for the past, say, 20 years, there's been incremental changes in technology and applications, but no big sea changes, no big shifts. But there is now, and again, getting back to the IoT, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on around the IoT. Part of what's driving that is we're seeing IoT type applications in the consumer space, and people are getting excited about smart homes and smart refrigerators and fitness products and things like that. So, in our industry too, for everything that's going on in the consumer space, there's much more actually and much more potential going on in the industrial automation and manufacturing space. So I think that's where the exciting area is. Again, what is IoT? It's getting data from disparate sources, doing things on the data that goes beyond, tracking a temperature or pressure, alarming when it's out of spec, doing things like, multivariable analysis, doing things like data clustering and learning about anomalies. So really around IoT and specifically around data, around artificial intelligence and around machine learning. I think that's, the exciting new frontier in our space.
Very cool. And what's going on right now, maybe at Opto 22? What's exciting that gets you out of bed? What are you really passionate about right now?
We're it's right on track with what we're talking about. We're very excited with our new platform that we're launching called the Epic. And we've been going, all hands on deck for the past several months to get this product wrapped and documented and pushed out to the market. So we're very excited because we feel it's something different, and it's a tool that is specifically geared toward people looking to do IoT type applications around connectivity, around data, and it's got a big, broad tool set to do that. So we think this is going to be really exciting. We've been showing it and promoting it prior to launch at some industry events. We were showing it at ARC. We've really been on the road for 3 months, almost every other week at some industry event, and the reception has been really good. People are, they may not know what they need to do yet, but when you talk about the potential of using protocols like MQTT that eliminate the hassles associated with remote monitoring by poking through firewalls and involving IT to set up VPNs, all that kind of goes away with some of this technology. We have Node-RED embedded in the product, which is a tool that can bring different data sources together and move data in different ways. All these things are very exciting. So we're just really pumped up about this. We've got great reception, and we think that it addresses some specific needs for people looking to do IoT applications. So it's all about Epic around here, and it will be through May when we start shipping the product. The enthusiasm's terrific, and it's just an exciting time to be here and be in the industry. Excellent.
Now, does Opto 22, where are you guys positioned in relation to the customer, the client, and system integrators? Do you guys kind of integrate your own stuff, or do you get kind of as your go-to-market really with a system integrator? Do you do your own project management? Kind of where are you guys in relation to all of this?
Yeah, we do not do system integration. We rely heavily on our partners and people in your organization. We go to market either if the end user or the OEM is going to do their own application, then of course we sell direct. We have a terrific channel of distributors, but the other channel is also system integrators. If the end user is not going to be doing their own, whether it be wiring, panel building, through programming, through connectivity to IT systems, we rely heavily on system integrators to do that. And domestically, we have a network of system integrators. Internationally, most of our partners are either high value add distributors or full system integrators. So where we're positioned, to answer your question, in our customers' view, is we try our best to give as many tools as they can to do the project themselves if they choose to, if they have the skill set to do that, by way of documentation, training, videos. but we understand also that with many end users, that's not their business. Their business is running their plant. They'd rather contract to a system integrator. So many of our customers go about it that way. Yeah. So
good.
yeah, we don't have a system integration arm or do services as, one of the kind of, not one of the big companies in the industry. We do have to succeed and survive and stand apart by providing a lot of pre-sales engineering and pre-sales help. And we pride ourselves on that, and it's always been a successful model for us. We don't charge somebody to talk about their application, get help with their application. We have engineers that can help them get started. So that's something that we do, and it's been a part of our success is doing that.
Excellent. Do you find that sometimes client maybe have a pre-design or a preconceived notion of what their project should be and kind of where your products fit in on that? And does that sometimes change when you start to do these kind of pre-sales sorts of things, or does an integrator have some sort of preconceived notion on this? The reason I ask is I always ask this question, like, how does a customer become a better customer? Because sometimes, sometimes people have this notion that, well, this is how it is. We've got this already planned, but then sometimes their solution really isn't the best one based on what the application there is.
We see that happening as well, Tony. Whether we're working directly with a customer via our pre-sales applications engineers, or we're partnered up with a system integrator to help that customer. Yeah, often, it spans whether, it's totally open requirements, but more often than not, versus, hard set requirements, it's usually somewhere in between. And what you're saying does happen, Nick. The project is defined, but as they learn about what the capabilities are of the platform, new doors may open up, or light bulbs may go on to be, or the system integrator may bring some idea based on experience they have or knowledge that they have, and things can shift or change, when these new ideas come about. So yeah, we've seen that happen as well. What I, like to try to tell our clients or our prospective clients is, to get us in the process early so they can see what the capabilities are, and that might shape the final design of the system or the product. And it's hard to do. It's a changing world out there. I'm kind of off on a different topic, but it's related. Is in today's world, when a group of engineers or an engineer sits down to do a new project, getting information now is at their fingertips. So the trend now is to get the Opto 22, wherever the vendor is, or the system integrator, or the distributor partner, involved later. I've read many studies that say, people are 50 to 60% down the path of what they want to do before they contact anybody from a vendor, from an SI. And that's okay. Everything's online. Vendors and SIs are no longer the guardians of information. It's all open and out there. But to your point, I think it's great if people, don't be shy to do that. Get the vendor involved in early, because there may be, even though you can see all the technology right there in your fingertips, the way it's applied or some domain expertise, might add value to what you're doing. So, yeah, definitely see that happen where things can shift from based on what they thought the way things were going to go.
Right.
And that's good. That's good. You got to be nimble and you got to be flexible.
Absolutely. Arun, let's change gears here a little bit here. Let's talk about you and kind of a little bit how you got here. First of all, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Where did you go to high school? Where did you go to college?
Yeah, terrific. I grew up in San Diego, California. A great place to grow up. It's a wonderful city. Like I said, it's about an hour south of where I am now. I was born in Michigan. My parents immigrated from India. My dad came to the U.S. in 1961, I think, to do his PhD. My oldest sister was born in India, and then the next three brothers and sisters were born here. But we moved to San Diego when I was 2, so pretty much I consider that's where I was born. And I went to high school right there in San Diego. I went to college at UCSD, which was, about 15 miles from where I lived. All my siblings went there. Great school, tough, but a good school. And so, I, like a lot of San Diegans, I moved up to this suburb my wife and I and family came here about 18 years ago. Great place to live. I got into this industry probably like a lot of your viewers by accident, as we were talking about before, somebody in college, unless maybe they're doing an IE degree, don't have their sights set on this industry. It's kind of exists, but not a lot of people know about it. But the way I came into it was I was a mechanical engineer and I was working for a company that did nuclear reactor design, believe it or not, for the R&D, and actually did designs for the U.S. Department of Energy. And as you know, this was in the early 90s, and, we aren't building any new power plants, so the funding kept getting cut, and finally they shut the whole operation down in 1993, and about me and 500 other engineers, we started looking for a job. But it was a blessing because I took the first job that looked interesting. It was in a nice place. The building was nice. The people looked nice, but I didn't know anything about instrumentation and controls. And I took that job, and I'm glad it happened because that was in 1993, and I've been in this industry ever since, and I love it. The other change that marked for me was a change from being an engineer, sitting in an office, writing Fortran code to do nuclear reactor flow and thermal analysis, and not seeing humans for 3 months at a time. I think I'd see my boss once a month, to being customer facing. And like I said, it was just by accident. I took a job at a rep company, like a distributor that repped 9 or 10 instrumentation and controls lines. And they said, you're an apps engineer and you got to be on the phone. Back then there wasn't, email was kind of new, but I realized, hey, I like this. I like, rather than, doing this design that's going to turn into a bunch of documents and put on a shelf somewhere for a nuclear reactor that's never going to be built. I'm doing real things. I'm talking to Bill at Chevron, who's got a refinery, who's doing an application, and he wants to measure this and monitor that and log it here. And, I'm helping him. So, I fell in love with the customer facing side, and I've kind of been on that side ever since. I love technology, but I love the people side. I love the application side, and I like the business side as well. So, I've been at a couple of companies over the years, and I came to Opto 12 years ago now. And I had my sights on this company. I always thought it was a neat company that did really interesting things. And I got hired on, and it's been great. So, that's kind of my story, where I grew up, how I got in the industry, and how I've been at Opto for
very good
quite some time now. Yeah.
So I always try to ask engineers if there were any indications that you might become an engineer, even growing up. So where did you tear stuff apart? Did you? I talked to somebody the other day who said that they were doing interesting things with their parents' computer and blew it up. And so,
it's a great question, and it's an interesting story. I was a bit of a tinker as a kid, but, not really. I was into sports. I was into music. I played in a band. That was kind of the things I did growing up. And I come from a family of biochemists. My dad's a PhD in biochemistry. My sister, one of them is a bioengineer. My brother he's a doctor now, but was a chemist. So I thought that was my track. The whole family's biochemistry, chemistry, medicine. And when I got to college at UCSD, no offense to anybody who's in that field, but biology and chemistry didn't really jive with me, So, I asked my mom, and believe it or not, she said, well, what do you like? I said, I like math. I like physics, blocks sliding down planes and pulleys and gears. She said, that's easy. You be an engineer, be the first Sinha who's an engineer. That's great. So got to give credit to my mom. I hadn't had my sights set on it. I was in my second year of college and wasn't sure. And because you didn't have to declare your major until like your second year at UCSD. And she just, said, what do you like? And steered me toward that. And I thank her for it. I love it. Later on, I since I did get interested in the business side, when I was at Emerson, I got into the marketing group there and product management. I like that. And she also advised me, and my boss at the time said, hey, you should do an MBA to kind of complete that package. So I did that at night as well. And I think the combination has been perfect for me. I get a little of both.
Very good. Very good. What are some of the skills that you find most useful, I guess, in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, it's a mix. On the technology side, I think you need a good mix of, let's call it hardware, knowing about sensors and instrumentation and wiring, all the things that kind of go into a PLC or coming out of a PLC or pack. But you also need some software skills as well. You need some networking and IT skills. So day to day in various forms, those things come up in some shape or another when you're working with a client or working on an application. And then on the soft skills, those are necessary too. When you're working with clients, you do need to have good communication skills. That's very important. You do need to be able to be a good listener. You do need to be able to take ideas and organize them and move toward a solution if what you're doing is addressing a problem. So besides technology, soft skills are very important as well. Organization, time management, all those things kind of, you're pulling on all those skills during any given day in this job. Very good.
Very good. Mm-hmm. What's some of the best advice that you would give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
That's a great question. Best advice I'd give myself. In terms of the context of work,
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, be open-minded. That's probably the main thing. Sometimes I think back when I was coming up, you get singular focused on what you think your goal or your path should be. And sometimes your focus gets narrow in terms of opportunities that present themselves. But in being a focused young man, the downside to that was, I didn't have, good peripheral vision. So I would say be open-minded to learning new things that are outside your comfort zone. That's probably the best advice. I always was trying to master and become, an expert in my comfort zone, but I think it's important to learn things and experience things outside your comfort zone as well in your professional track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personal is a whole different story.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time for that.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a younger cousin who's could be just basically a niece, but she was posting on Facebook the other day of and she's like 27, 28, something like that. And so she's professional. She's in real estate, and she's just she's like one of these bootstrappers, right? And you can see that she's going to make it. And so, but maybe like a lot of people at that age, they're thinking, they want things to happen. You're like just looking for their big break, and I want this to happen. And I'm just thinking, here I am 22 years later, thinking, just be patient, just keep doing it. And there may not never be a big break, right? But looking in retrospect, what you just said is having that perspective of make sure you just look at different things, experience different things, and good things will happen.
I think that's great, Tony. I want to borrow that and pipe it back to my younger self too. That's good advice. Yeah, patience is important. When you're young and you want to be a go-getter, sometimes it's at the expense of patience. So that's a great one. Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree.
But yeah, and like I said, sometimes we, being in our 40s and 50s and 60s, and look back at our younger self, and you think, you were successful. This was all happening. You didn't even know it. You didn't even realize this was happening at the time.
That is so true.
Personally and professionally. So, well, very good. So, I guess as we're wrapping up, Arun, what I always like to ask people, especially who are successful in their careers and either running their own companies or entrepreneurs or managers, at their company. I always like to try to get a little insight, especially I asked you a question about what are some of the skills that you have that help you be successful. I also like to ask, what are some of the things they do first things in the day? How do they organize their day? So Arun rolls out of bed. What is the next 90 minutes? What do the next 90 minutes look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I've got a bit of a routine, and it's kind of geared toward making sure that when I get to the office, I'm calm, I'm focused, I'm not stressed, and I'm ready to get started with my day. So what I do is I'm an early riser. I don't like to get ready in a hurry in 30 minutes and be out there. I give myself like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from the time my alarm goes off to the time I leave the door. Kind of a slow start. I have some tea, and I usually try to check a few emails that are low-hanging fruit that I can knock off. Ones that require a lot more thought and things like that I'll leave for later. But I try to get a little bit done before I even leave the house, and ramp up slowly, and then finish my tea and get on with getting ready and all that. So that's really what I do. So by the time I get to the office, I've done that, as well as have kind of a mental or written checklist of the 2 or 3 things that I want to get done today. So that's my routine. And time management's important. Being focused, when you get into the office, people can come at you from all sides and things can pop up. So I try to knock off some low-hanging fruit before I even get here. That's kind of my trick. And the checklist thing too is there's things that, obviously pop up every day, especially when you're dealing with clients. They're always top priority. They'll trump anything. If I've got an urgent need from a customer, that takes priority. But for longer term projects, I try to say, okay, this thing is going to take me 2 weeks, but today I'm going to knock off this aspect of it. So that's the kind of 2 or 3 thing checklist. So a little bit before I get here, then have either mental or a written checklist of the main goals that I want to get done, despite distractions, which are inevitable. That's kind of my first 90 minutes.
Very good. Very good. And so I really appreciate, Arun, your time today. I appreciate you sitting down with me and helping to get to know you and get to know your company and your views on the industry.
Tony, I was so happy that you invited me. It's an honor to be here, and thank you so much.
Very good. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate your time and your company lets you sit down here and chat here. So, Arun, it's a pleasure. Looking forward to maybe seeing. Are you going to be at our conference?
Yes, I'll see you next week. I will be there.
Next week we'll be in San Francisco at the Executive Conference for CSIA. So we have about 500 members. Will show up. In fact, this year we're probably going to push 600 attendees. This year we're at, last I heard, we were at 583. So this is going to be a record attendance for us. So should be great. Arun Sinha, Opto 22. Thanks so much. We've been talking industrial automation with Arun. Take care.
Thank you. Be well.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe in iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Help others find us by sharing your favorite episode with a colleague and give us a rating in iTunes. Visit CSIAExchange.com/podcast for a full list of episodes. Contact us at podcast@controlsys.org. podcast@controlsys.org. Thanks to bensound.com for the music.
Thanks for listening to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. Read the Industrial Automation blog and find and research qualified system integrators at CSIAExchange.com. For more information on why your system integrator should be CSIA certified, visit controlsys.org. controlsys.org.